want you to try to imagine something with me. This used to actually be a tennis court. How did we get this piece of information, you may ask? To find out, we'll have to rewind back to Friday, September 19th, which marked the beginning of the 2025 European Journée de Patrimoine. Every year, in the third weekend of September, the Journée de Patrimoine allows French people to visit their national heritage sites, monuments, churches, castles, but also private residences and other places that are usually closed to the public. It's honestly a great initiative with a long history going back to 1984, and we wanted to be a part of it. So we made a flyer, hung it on our gates, and posted it online in a few key places, thinking we'd be lucky to get a handful of people interested in our humble chateau restoration.
By the end of midday, we were already very pleased with a bigger turnout than expected. Friends and neighbors explored the grounds, filled up on nuts and apples, and learned a little bit about La Ferté's history and ongoing renovation plans, as well as sharing their own expertise and memories of the chateau.
But by the second opening later in the afternoon, we really became overwhelmed. Over 100 people showed up, coming from miles around to see what we were doing at the chateau. Mainly because, as we were reminded by several attendees, the chateau had really never been opened in this way before. We were absolutely blown away and had to split into groups to keep things moving.
Donc l'idée, c'est de faire notre salle de bain de ce côté-là, parce que c'est plus facile quand tu as déjà mis le programme. Oui.
Now, this wasn't even the biggest surprise of the weekend.
A couple of days before we opened the gates, we received an email from Stéphane, who said that his mother, Colette, and his aunts had been born in the chateau and would be thrilled to visit during the Journée du Patrimoine. This was a very exciting prospect for us, as we would finally get an insider's account of what life was really like at the chateau back in the day.
Est-ce qu'il y avait un évier?
Non, je crois pas.
Donc il y avait une table.
Il y avait une grande table là.
Une grande table là.
Une grande table.
Là.
Le buffet, un grand buffet ici.
Donc ça veut dire que
Et
le...
là, oui, là, c'était une cuisinière à bois.
Une cuisinière à bois. Et dites-moi une chose, tout le monde me parle dans monte-charge. Il était où ces monte-charge?
Non, c'était que le poste plat.
C'était un passe-plat. Quand la cuisine était servie, donc pour passer les plats dans la salle à manger,
d'accord.
ça passait par ici.
Donc il n'y avait rien qui connectait au sous-sol? Non. Il y a encore un lit qui est là. Est-ce que c'était le vôtre?
Il y a encore un lit à Colette.
Voilà.
Oui, ça se peut que ça soit.
C'est votre lit.
Ça se peut, là, ça se
Et
peut.
maman était là-bas.
Et votre mère, elle était de ces côtés-là?
Elle était là.
Ah bon?
Là. Les parents étaient là. Les parents étaient là et nous on était dans l'autre. Ouais. On était tous trois dans la même chambre.
Vous n'étiez pas toutes seules?
On était dans la même chambre, nous.
Et il y avait ces papiers peints, parce qu'on voit des traces, une espèce de papier peint vert.
Ah oui,
vert là.
Ah oui, ça devait être ça, oui.
Voilà.
Oui, ça devait être ça.
We had so many questions to ask them, but unfortunately, with the unexpected surge of afternoon visitors, we didn't feel like we had enough time. So, of course, we invited them back a week later for a private visit.
Tu vois que c'est plat,
On c'était là.
C'était là.
J'ai jamais imaginé ça. C'est
C'est incroyable. Il faut l'avoir vu pour... Alors forcément les arbres n'étaient pas là à l'époque.
Des grands sapins là.
Des grands sapins.
Des grands sapins. Et des platanes aussi. Il y avait des platanes.
platane. Ah ouais, ok.
Voilà, ça cachait les maisons.
Alors ça cachait tout, on voyait pas les maisons.
Another thing we learned from Colette is that this structure here was part of a canal, which makes sense with all the bones we found while we're digging this area.
And yet another tidbit. Our outdoor toilets that we assumed had not been in use for a very long time Well, they were actually being used all the way up until the 70s. The toilets in the chateau were only for the owners. Everyone else had to come out here to use the bathroom. So what was happening here? Colette told us that this was actually where they would roast potatoes to feed to the pigs, or maybe just a pig. Where were these pigs? In the next room over, in those ruined part of the longère. We've been wondering for a very long time what those rooms were used for, and now we have an answer. At least for the time that Colette and her sisters were here. C'est du luxe. C'est très joli. Ouais. C'était ça.
T'en prends une deux, on prend.
Ouais.
Merci beaucoup.
Je me permets.
Don't forget to like and subscribe so we can keep these videos coming. Your support means everything.
So here we are on the second floor of the house, the service floor. But we weren't sure about that, if this was actually 100% a service floor. And why is that? Because we have some bedrooms on this floor that have been embellished, have niches for beds. They were treated with wallpaper. They were really nice bedrooms, actually. So we thought that by the 20th century, this was more of a hybrid floor, you know, with maybe some guest rooms, guest bedrooms. But no, up to the 70s, this was still 100% a service floor. Right behind this door is where Yvonne, the cook, and her 3 daughters lived. So let's check that out. So here we are at Yvonne's room and her husband. She was the cook. I think he was the gardener, but he was responsible for many services in the property. There's a whole story there. He was a war prisoner during Second World War, came back years later while she was here alone with the little girls. When I said embellished room, I was talking about the niche, some wallpaper, but this room communicates with this second room right here. And this is the room where the 3 girls were born and raised. And Colette, the former governess, lived for some 30 years of her life. Now, there's something interesting as well. When we first got to the house is the fact that we have this bell system right here. And this is why we thought that this was sort of a hybrid room, because we thought, oh, maybe these were guest rooms. But of course, if there's a bell, this was for calling the help to come down. I don't know, it was a different time. Now these bedrooms, sorry about the mess, we're using as a storage space. And guess what? It was a storage space. They would use to store apples, tilleul. What is tilleul?
It's just tilleul.
Well, so this was pretty much a storage room. Now again, another one of these storage rooms. So we have 2 storage rooms on this floor. This might explain why they were locking it from the outside. But listen, we're talking about people who are alive today, who are like above 80. So we're talking about how this house was functioning in a good chunk of the 20th century, between World War II and the 70s. The Trente Glorieuses, if you might. Of course, maybe in the 19th century or very early 20th century, maybe these were bedrooms, dormitories.
Maybe nursery.
Nursery, very well. And why am I saying that? Because right here in this storage room, we have a fireplace. It seems like this was made for people more than stuff. Uh-oh, got our bats back. Yeah. So we have this bedroom here. According to Colette and her sisters, this was from another gentleman that would help in the garden and services in general. As you can see, this full floor was a staff floor, pretty much. There are no sinks, no bathrooms on this floor.
So another anecdote from Colette that she actually didn't remember until a little bit later. They came during the Journée de Patrimoine and then we invited them back. And in between those two visits, she had her memory jogged and she remembered that there was actually a boar's head hanging from this trou over here.
Oui, elle s'est réveillée la nuit et
là... Et c'est là que j'ai vu la grosse tête de sanglier.
Apparue.
Oui.
La nuit.
La grosse tête là. Oh là là. Elle était énorme.
She said that it was actually very terrifying. And we know that the family of Bois-Louveau were big into hunting. So it's kind of fun to imagine this whole staircase with the hunting scene wallpaper and a big boar's head hanging right there. Should we put the boar's head back? What do you think? No? Maybe we could put just a painting of a boar or a hunting scene instead of an actual boar's head. What do you guys think? Let us know in the comments. Should we put this boar's head back? That would be a very weird thing to look for on Le Bon Coin.
Here we are at our improvised kitchen. If you've been following our channel, you know that we want to transform this into a bureau. We thought that this used to be a bedroom because its layout, it was just like the bedroom upstairs. These houses used to have ground floor bedrooms for the elder in the family. You know, they couldn't go up the stairs, so they would have them on the ground floor. But in the 20th century, guess what? According to Colette, this was a office. This was a bureau for Monsieur du Bois-Louveau.
Il y avait en bureau, c'était pas une chambre. Et en bas, c'était...
Un bureau aussi.
D'accord.
Il y avait deux bureaux, en haut et en bas. Et quand il y avait quelqu'un, ça pouvait servir de chambre.
D'accord.
Now, not only this was an office, they were completely barred from entering. So it was a room with much speculation of what was going on inside. It shows that we're sort of the right track. It's what I've been saying. When you listen to the house speaks to you. So we got this cue. Why not have an office? It kind of felt right. And guess what? We're not far from it. Boom! Because I'd have no place to go. Now, one of the biggest treasures that we got from Colette, besides all her memories, was the exact layout of the kitchen in the mid-20th century. So according to Colette, this was a very simple kitchen, exactly the way we want it. Right here behind me, as you remember from some episodes before we took this down, the fireplace throughout most of the 20th century was already not being used. So the range was right in front of it. It was not down there, it was right in front of it. And it was a fire burning stove, so it had chimney stack going all the way up and tapping into the
original flue.
The original flue. There was a big farm table right here. Now, there was no plan de travail. There was no
workspace.
There was no workspace because these women, they were small. They either work standing by the table or they would just sit down and do their work like sitting down. Ergonomy wasn't a big thing. We were asking where the faucets were. Where was the évier? And guess what? There were no éviers in this kitchen. There was no water. The water was brought down from the butler's pantry where they had a sink. But here, they had apparently what was a very beautiful piece of furniture where they would stack all their china and kitchen utensils, and it was huge and carved and extremely beautiful. We never got to see that, unfortunately. Right here, you had all the pans and pots, and of course, this wasn't a door. These were shelves. So Yvonne, the cook, she would get the food ready and serve it and just leave them there for someone else to get them and serve them. So it's crazy because we weren't very far off. Now, the only difference is we want the range to go inside the fireplace. Instead of having a beautiful buffet, we're gonna have our sinks, because we do want sinks in our kitchen. We'll have a table and a little plan de travail, because, you know, it's the 21st century after all. The idea is to find this beautiful balance between the 19th century and where we are now, and we think the mid-20th century is a great place to start. So it's great to have Colette to tell us how it was from the 40s up to the 70s right here. So you may be wondering what's going on in the kitchen. So for a couple of weeks, we are waiting for these to be available to us. These are two 5x8 chivons that we have to put on the floor to secure the place where the stone arch used to be. The stone arch doesn't exist anymore. Now they're here and we're ready to finish up this floor. Stay tuned for the next episode. Chateaux are historically places of exclusion. Opening up La Ferté for Journée du Patrimoine was a shot in the dark, but we couldn't be happier with what came out of it. All this new information is invaluable for the overall renovation project and for transmitting this knowledge to future generations. Let us be a bridge, not a wall.
Would you open your house to your community? Would you come to La Ferté on our next Heritage Weekend? Let us know in the comments below.
Until next time, bye.